There is a reason some battles in your life feel heavier than others. There is a reason some dreams collapse the moment you speak them. And there is a reason why, even when God has placed something sacred inside your heart, the moment you expose it to the wrong ears, it begins to lose its power. Listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you is not ordinary advice. This is a warning. This is protection. This is divine wisdom. God is not only guiding you in what to do, God is also guiding you in what to keep silent. And if you ignore this, you may unknowingly delay your own blessings. You see, not everything in your life is meant for public discussion. Not everything God whispers into your spirit is meant for the crowd. There are moments when silence is not weakness, it is obedience. There are times when speaking is not courage, it is carelessness. And the difference between those two can determine whether you rise into your purpose or remain stuck in frustration. God did not design your destiny to be debated by people who cannot see what you see. God did not place a vision inside you so that it could be dissected by doubt, poisoned by jealousy, or weakened by disbelief. When God speaks, it is sacred. When God plants something inside you, it is powerful. But power requires protection. And one of the greatest forms of protection is silence. There are 5 things, 5 critical areas of your life that God is urging you to guard. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Not because others are always evil, but because not everyone is equipped to handle what God is doing in you. Some people listen, but they do not understand. Some people smile, but they do not support. Some people hear your words, but they secretly hope you fail. The first thing God is warning you never to reveal carelessly is your next move. Your next step is not for everyone to know. The moment you announce your plans to the wrong audience, you invite opinions, doubts, and distractions. And those things have the power to weaken your focus. God does not need a committee to confirm your direction. God does not require public approval to fulfill a promise. When God is preparing you for something greater, there is a season of quiet movement, a season where you build, grow, and prepare in silence, because noise attracts interference, and interference delays progress. You must understand this deeply. Every time you speak too early, you expose something that has not yet been strengthened. There are people who will question you, not because they care, but because they cannot see beyond their own limitations. They will plant seeds of doubt in your mind. They will make you second-guess what God has already confirmed. And if you are not careful, their words will become louder than God's voice in your heart. That is why silence becomes your shield. Silence becomes your strategy. When you move quietly, you move with clarity. When you protect your plans, you protect your progress. And when you trust God without seeking validation from others, you walk with confidence that cannot be shaken. The second thing God is telling you to guard is your weaknesses. Not everyone deserves to know where you struggle. Not everyone should have access to your vulnerable places. Because while some people will support you, others will use your weakness as a weapon. God sees your weaknesses, but God does not expose you to humiliation. God works on you privately, strengthening you step by step. But when you reveal your struggles to people who lack compassion, you place yourself in a position where your growth is hindered by judgment. There is a difference between seeking guidance and oversharing. Wisdom is knowing who to trust. Wisdom is understanding that not every listener is safe. Some people do not listen to help. They listen to remember. They store your weaknesses so they can use them against you later. God is not asking you to hide in fear. God is asking you to be selective. Because when you protect your weaknesses, you give God the space to transform them into strengths. But when you expose them carelessly, you risk turning your journey into a spectacle. The third thing God is warning you about is your good deeds. When you do something good, when you help someone, when you act with kindness, do it for God, not for recognition. The moment you begin to announce your good actions for praise, you reduce their spiritual value. God sees everything. God knows your intentions. And the reward from God is far greater than the applause of people. But when you start seeking validation, you shift your focus away from God and toward human approval. And human approval is unstable. It comes and goes. One moment people praise you, the next moment they criticize you. If your motivation depends on their reaction, your consistency will be broken. But when your actions are rooted in sincerity, you remain steady. There is power in doing good silently. There is strength in giving without announcing. Because when your heart is aligned with God, your reward does not depend on who notices. It depends on who sees everything. And that is God. The fourth thing God is urging you to protect is your personal life. Not every detail of your life needs to be shared. Not every moment needs to be displayed. Privacy is not secrecy, it is protection. When you expose too much of your life, you invite unnecessary opinions. You allow people to analyze, judge, and interfere in ways that disrupt your peace. And peace is essential for growth. God wants you to live a life that is stable, not scattered. A life that is focused, not distracted. And that requires boundaries. It requires discipline in what you share and what you keep to yourself. Some people will not understand your choices. Some people will question your decisions. But you are not living for their understanding. You are living according to the direction God has placed in your heart. When you protect your personal life, you create a space where you can grow without pressure. You create an environment where your decisions are guided by faith, not influenced by noise. And that is where true progress happens. The fifth and most critical thing God is warning you about is your prayers. Your connection with God is sacred. It is not something to be displayed or discussed casually. Because your prayers are not just words. They are conversations with the Creator. When you share your prayers with the wrong people, you risk exposing something deeply personal, something powerful, something that requires trust, not attention. God listens to you in your quiet moments. God understands what you cannot even express fully. And that connection is not meant to be diluted by unnecessary sharing. There is a depth in private prayer that cannot be explained. A strength that builds when you speak to God without distraction. And when you protect that space, you strengthen your faith in ways that no external validation can replace. Understand this clearly. Silence is not about isolation. It is about preservation. It is about guarding what God has given you so that it can grow without interference. Every great transformation begins in quietness. Every powerful breakthrough is prepared in silence. And every strong individual understands the value of holding back until the time is right. You do not need to announce your growth. You do not need to explain your journey. You do not need to convince anyone of what God is doing in your life. Let your results speak. Let your progress show. Let your transformation become the evidence, because when God moves in your life, it becomes undeniable, it becomes visible, and it does not require explanation. There will be moments when you feel the urge to speak, to share, to reveal everything. But in those moments, remember this: everything that is exposed too early is weakened. Protect your vision. Protect your growth. Protect your connection with God. Not everyone needs access to your life. Not everyone deserves to hear your plans. Not everyone is meant to understand your journey. And that is not arrogance. That is wisdom. God is guiding you, not just in what to pursue, but in what to protect. And if you listen carefully, if you practice discipline, if you embrace silence where it is needed, you will begin to see a shift in your clarity, a shift in your strength, a shift in your results. Because when you align your actions with wisdom, you position yourself for elevation. So guard your next move. Guard your weaknesses. Guard your good deeds. Guard your personal life. Guard your prayers. Move with intention. Speak with purpose. And remain silent where it matters most. Because what God is building in you does not need noise. It needs protection. But understand this with even greater depth. Silence is not just about what you avoid saying. It is about what you are cultivating within. When God calls you into a season of restraint, it is not to limit you. It is to prepare you. Because anything that grows strong in silence becomes unshakable in public. And anything that is built in discipline carries a weight that cannot be easily destroyed. There are people who talk too much because they are seeking validation. They speak because they want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to feel important. But the one who is truly guided by God does not chase attention. They carry presence. And presence is more powerful than noise. Presence is felt without announcement. Presence is recognized without explanation. When God is shaping you, there will be moments where you feel misunderstood. Moments where people question why you are quiet, why you are not sharing, why you are not explaining yourself. But you must resist the pressure to prove yourself. Because the need to explain often comes from insecurity, while silence rooted in God comes from certainty. God is not confused about your purpose. God is not uncertain about your direction. So why should you feel the need to constantly justify what God has already established within you? When you trust God fully, you release the burden of convincing others. There is a hidden strength in being unknown during your preparation season. A strength that protects you from unnecessary expectations. A strength that allows you to fail, learn, grow, and rise again without the weight of public opinion. Because growth is messy. Transformation is not always beautiful in the beginning. And if everything is exposed too early, people will judge the process instead of respecting the result. God understands this, which is why many of the most powerful transformations happen in private, where no one sees the struggle, where no one hears the doubts, where no one witnesses the battles you are fighting within. And yet, it is in those unseen moments that your foundation is being built. Do not underestimate the power of what God is doing in the unseen, because what is hidden today can become undeniable tomorrow. But only if it is protected long enough to mature. There is also something deeper you must recognize. Words carry energy. Words shape direction. Words influence outcomes. When you speak carelessly, you are not just communicating, you are releasing something into your environment. And not everyone who hears your words will receive them with purity. Some will twist them. Some will doubt them. Some will even try to sabotage them. And while you may not see it immediately, the impact can be real. This is why discipline in speech is not optional. It is essential. God has given you the ability to speak, but also the wisdom to remain silent. And knowing when to use each is a sign of maturity. A sign that you are no longer controlled by impulse, but guided by purpose. There are moments when silence protects your peace. Because every conversation is not worth having. Every argument is not worth engaging. Every opinion does not deserve your response. When you respond to everything, you drain your energy. But when you are selective, you preserve your strength. God does not require you to defend yourself in every situation. Sometimes your silence is your defense. Sometimes your restraint is your victory. Because not every battle is meant to be fought with words. Some battles are won through patience, through trust, through unwavering faith. And when you choose silence in those moments, you are not losing. You are rising above what is trying to pull you down. Another truth you must understand is this. When you constantly share your plans, your struggles, your thoughts, you become dependent on external reactions. You begin to measure your progress based on how people respond. And that is dangerous because people are inconsistent. One day they support you. The next day they doubt you. One moment they encourage you. The next moment they criticize you. And if your direction is influenced by their shifting opinions, you will never remain steady. But when your connection is with God alone, your direction becomes stable. Your confidence becomes rooted. Your focus becomes clear. Because you are no longer seeking approval. You are following guidance. There is a level of peace that comes when you detach from the need to be understood by everyone. Because the truth is, not everyone will understand you. Not everyone is meant to. Some people are only meant to witness the outcome, not the process. And that is why you must become comfortable with being misunderstood for a season. Comfortable with walking a path that others cannot fully see. Because clarity does not always come from explanation. It comes from alignment with God. You must also guard your emotional reactions. Because not everything deserves your immediate response. There are situations where silence gives you clarity, where stepping back allows you to see what you could not see in the moment. When you react too quickly, you often respond from emotion, not wisdom. But when you pause, when you remain silent, you give yourself the space to respond with intention. God does not operate in chaos. God operates with precision. And when you align yourself with that, your actions become more deliberate, more effective, more powerful. There is another layer to this. Your silence is also a test of trust, a test of whether you truly believe that God is in control. Because when you feel the urge to speak, to explain, to defend, it often comes from a place of wanting to control the outcome. But when you trust God completely, you release that need. You understand that not everything requires your intervention. Some things require your patience. Some things require your surrender. And in that surrender, there is strength. Because you are no longer carrying what was never yours to carry. There will be times when people misinterpret your silence. They may think you are weak. They may think you have nothing to say, but what they do not realize is that your silence is intentional, it is chosen, it is guided, because the strongest individuals are not the ones who speak the most. They are the ones who know when to speak and when to remain silent. You are not here to impress people with words. You are here to live a life that reflects the power of God. And that reflection does not come from constant talking. It comes from consistent action. When your life aligns with your purpose, your actions will speak louder than anything you could ever say. Your discipline will speak. Your growth will speak. Your transformation will speak. And when that happens, you will no longer feel the need to explain yourself, because the evidence will be clear. So as you continue this journey, remind yourself daily, everything does not need to be shared. Everything does not need to be explained. Everything does not need to be announced. Guard your energy. Guard your focus. Guard what God is building within you. Because the more you protect it, the stronger it becomes. The more you nurture it in silence, the more powerful it will be when it is revealed. And when that moment comes, when what God has been building in you begins to manifest, it will not need introduction. It will not need explanation. It will stand on its own, carrying the weight of everything you protected, everything you endured, and everything you trusted God for. There is yet another layer that many overlook, and it is this. Silence is not only protection from others, it is purification within yourself. Because when you speak less, you begin to hear more. Not the noise of people, not the confusion of opinions, but the quiet, steady direction that comes from God. And that direction is not loud. It does not compete. It does not force itself upon you. It comes with clarity, with calmness, with a certainty that does not need to shout. But if your life is filled with constant talking, constant explaining, constant reacting, you will miss it. You will overlook the very guidance you are asking for, because a distracted mind cannot receive clear direction. A restless heart cannot recognize divine timing. That is why silence becomes more than a discipline. It becomes a doorway into deeper awareness, deeper understanding, and a stronger connection with God. When you begin to embrace this, you will notice something powerful. Your decisions will become sharper. Your reactions will become wiser. Your patience will become stronger. Not because your circumstances have changed, but because you have changed. Because you are no longer operating from impulse. You are operating from alignment. And alignment with God creates stability that cannot be shaken by external pressure. There are people who rush to speak because they fear being overlooked. They think if they do not speak, they will be forgotten. But what is truly meant for you cannot pass you by. What God has written for you does not depend on how loudly you announce yourself. It depends on how faithfully you walk your path. You do not need to compete for attention when your purpose is already secured. You do not need to prove your worth when God has already assigned your value. The moment you understand this, you stop chasing visibility and start focusing on integrity. And integrity grows in silence, because in silence, you do what is right even when no one is watching. In silence, you remain disciplined, even when there is no applause. In silence, you stay committed, even when there is no recognition. And that is where true strength is built, not in what people see, but in what they do not. Another truth that must settle deeply within you is this. When you protect your words, you protect your energy. Every unnecessary conversation drains you. Every argument that leads nowhere weakens you. Every explanation given to the wrong person exhausts you. But when you begin to choose silence intentionally, you reclaim that energy. You redirect it toward your growth, your purpose, your connection with God. And suddenly, you have more clarity, more focus, more strength to move forward. This is not accidental. This is the result of discipline. God does not elevate a distracted mind. God strengthens the one who learns control over speech, control over reactions, control over emotions. Because control leads to consistency, and consistency leads to transformation. And transformation is what you are being prepared for. There is also a hidden danger in speaking too much about what you are becoming. Because when you talk excessively about your goals, your brain begins to feel as if progress has already been made. You receive a temporary sense of satisfaction without actually doing the work. And over time, this weakens your drive. But when you remain silent, when you keep your focus internal, you create a hunger that pushes you to act, a hunger that drives you to improve, a hunger that does not settle for words, but demands results. And that hunger becomes your fuel. God places vision inside you, not for discussion, but for execution, not for endless explanation, but for committed action. And the more you protect that vision, the more clearly you will see the steps you need to take. You will begin to move with intention. You will begin to act with precision. You will begin to progress without distraction. And people will notice. But by then it will not matter to you. Because you are no longer doing it for their recognition. You are doing it because you are aligned with God. There is also something powerful about delayed revelation. When you hold back, when you build quietly, when you grow without announcing it, what eventually comes forth carries impact. It carries weight. It carries undeniable presence because it was not rushed. It was not forced. It was developed with patience. And patience is a sign of trust. It shows that you are not desperate for immediate validation. It shows that you are confident in the process God has placed you in. It shows that you understand timing. True timing is not controlled by you, but guided by something greater. So you wait, not passively, but actively preparing. You remain silent, not out of fear, but out of strength. You hold back, not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand that not everything should be said. And in that understanding, you rise above the noise that traps so many others. There will come moments when you feel alone in this path. Moments where it seems like everyone else is sharing, announcing, displaying every part of their life while you are holding back. And in those moments, you may question yourself, but remind yourself, just because something is common does not mean it is wise. Just because something is popular does not mean it is beneficial. You are not called to follow the crowd. You are called to follow direction. And that direction comes from God, not from trends, not from opinions, not from pressure. So remain steady, remain disciplined, remain aware. Because every time you choose silence over unnecessary speech, you are strengthening your inner control. Every time you resist the urge to explain yourself, you are reinforcing your confidence. Every time you protect what God has placed within you, you are honoring its value. And over time, these choices will shape you into someone who cannot be easily shaken. someone who does not react impulsively, someone who does not seek constant validation, someone who moves with purpose, speaks with intention, and lives with clarity. That is the level you are being called to. Not a life of noise, but a life of meaning. Not a life of constant expression, but a life of powerful impact. Not a life driven by attention, but a life guided by God. And when you reach that level, you will begin to see the difference clearly. While others are exhausted from trying to be seen, you will be grounded in who you are. While others are distracted by opinions, you will be focused on your path. While others are speaking endlessly, you will be moving forward steadily. Because you have learned something that many never understand. What you protect in silence, God strengthens in ways that cannot be reversed. And once that strength is established within you, nothing external will have the power to take it away. Now the moment has come for you to make a decision. Not a small decision, not a temporary change, but a deep internal commitment that will reshape the way you live, the way you speak, and the way you walk with God. This is where everything you have heard becomes real. This is where you stop listening and start transforming. Because knowledge without action changes nothing, but truth applied with discipline changes everything. Look at your life honestly. Examine your words. Examine your habits. How much have you spoken unnecessarily? How often have you revealed what should have been protected? How many times have you allowed the noise of others to influence what God placed inside you? This is not a moment for guilt. This is a moment for awakening. Because once you see clearly, you can choose differently. Right now, make a decision within yourself that you will become more disciplined with your speech, that you will no longer speak out of impulse, but out of intention, that you will no longer expose what God is building in you before it's time. Let this be the moment where you draw a line between your past habits and your future strength. Choose to become someone who values silence as much as speech. Someone who understands that not every thought needs to be expressed, not every feeling needs to be shared, and not every plan needs to be announced. Choose to walk with a deeper awareness that God is guiding you, shaping you, and strengthening you even when no one else sees it. And as you make this decision, commit yourself to a closer connection with God. Not a surface level connection, not something occasional, but something consistent, something real, something rooted in sincerity. Speak to God in your quiet moments. Turn to God when you feel uncertain. Rely on God when you feel weak. Because the more you draw closer to God, the less you will feel the need to seek understanding from others. Let your trust in God become stronger than your desire to be understood. Let your faith in God become greater than your need for approval. Let your obedience to God become more important than your urge to explain yourself. This is your challenge. Discipline your words, protect your spirit, and align your life with the guidance of God. Not for a day, not for a moment, but as a way of living. Let this become your standard. Let this become your identity. And when you walk this path with sincerity, you will feel a shift within you. A calmness that replaces confusion, a strength that replaces doubt, a clarity that replaces distraction. Because when you walk closely with God, you no longer move blindly. You move with purpose. So rise with this awareness, carry this discipline, guard what has been entrusted to you, and let your life reflect a deeper wisdom, a stronger faith, and an unshakable connection with God.